Hi, good evening, and welcome to day 228 at GGY, our usual roundtable discussion on a Wednesday night. I'm going to dispense with the usual preamble because we have a very special guest here today, Honorable Shanakiyan Rajaputhiran Rasamanickam, Member of Parliament from the Batiklo district representing the TNA. Thank you so much, Shanakiyan, for joining us. I know you're on a bit of a clock, so we'll get straight to the questions. Usually when we start with a guest, we read the Wikipedia page, and just to get an idea. So you're born in September 1990, which makes you what, 33 years old now?
Just 33 last week.
Okay, so we always
Actually, a month ago, sorry.
happy belated birthday. So we always say we need more youthful representation in Parliament, and I think we described you as a firebrand, and you're trilingual. So I think your appeal is very clear. You're a Trinitarian to boot, and but one interesting thing about your Wikipedia page is that when I read it, it had a bit of a slant to it because it points out that you entered politics under the UPFA. It basically describes you as a Rajapaksa sort of like an acolyte, that you have connections to Pillayan, that you're connected to Subana Ratanathero. So we thought, rather than read the Wikipedia page, we'll hear about you from you and just give you a chance to clear the air about what's written there.
First of all, it's a pleasure to be on GGY, the roundtable discussion. And good work to you all too, and congratulations for doing something that's much needed to actually, the discussion that you have, I think, is very, very much needed in this country. So first of all, congratulations to you as well. In fact, there is, on the Wikipedia page, generally Wikipedia is not a very accurate source. I mean, even if you were studying at university or something, you can't ever quote Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is generally, you can put whatever that anybody wants. So then you could obviously ask me why I haven't changed my Wikipedia if there is something incorrect. But Wikipedia has some system where there is a score. So somebody who's updated the Wikipedia page, who has a higher ranking, if that person's post will get priority over somebody who's new to Wikipedia, even if it's the owner, right? Let's say if it's about me, even I can't go and change it, even if the information is incorrect. But one thing on that is true. I did start my political career with the SLFP. I was an electoral organizer for the SLFP because at the time, at 21, I wanted to join politics. And in my party, the average age is about 65 to 70. General average.
Your party is in your current party.
Current political party, the members of parliament, if you take our average, is about 60 plus, because that is also because our leader is 91. That kind of puts off our average a little off. So at 21, it was quite a challenge to enter the party that I wanted to enter, because my grandfather was a former leader of the Ilangai Thamarasa Katchi, that is the main party of the alliance. So at that time, when I was 21, I was in Australia, and I moved back to Sri Lanka. Rather, I came back to Sri Lanka on a holiday. I didn't plan to move back, and that I always had an interest in politics. But when I approached the party, or rather my father at the time, because I didn't have any contacts, the sitting MPs of the district didn't want me to join the party. In fact, one of them just passed away a few days ago. One of the people who opposed opposed me joining.
Was it because of your age?
Well, I think, it was not, at 21 to someone just to join the party. So since my grandfather was a leader of the party 4 times and all that, the whole political, but he passed away in 1974. So it's not like can't say nepotism and, family politics, because he passed away in 1974. I was born in 1990. So I came to parliament nearly 50 years after he was last in parliament. Right. So that angle is different. But I think I'm not too sure. I mean, I don't want to comment on why I was not accepted. and it's all in the past. But then I didn't have a way of entering politics. I mean, and my parents were dead against me joining the SLFP. So I think I took a decision on my own to join the SLFP. And obviously, in 2015, I wanted to contest for parliament. SLFP was the only party that was willing to give me nominations at the time, because obviously I wasn't born in Batiklo. I didn't grow up in Batiklo. I didn't go to school in Batiklo. I didn't live in Batiklo up until 2013. So, all of us, 2015 was the elections, but I moved to Batiklo in 2013. So nobody wanted me. So nobody was taking me seriously. So I had to make a statement saying that I'm not here just to kill time, or because I had done my bachelor's in Australia. I was working as a full-time auditor at the time, so I quit my job and I moved back here. And when you want to be taken seriously, you have to do certain things. So which is how I ended up contesting under the SLFP ticket. But at that time, Maithripala Sirisena was the leader of the SLFP, because the Yahapalnya government had come, because in 2014, rather 2015, January, Mahinda Rajapaksa lost the election. Yeah. So Maitri took over. So Maitri was seen as some different brand of politics. So that's when I contested on the SLFP. So 8 people can contest for parliament on the SLFP ticket in Batiklo. So the agreement was that, 3 of us, maybe 3 and 2, would work together, because there are 3 electorates. So Pillayan was given nominations by the UPFA. So he contested under the same ticket. So which is why people sometimes, Pillayan and I have shared a stage.
Oh, that's the link. That's why people link you, saying that you have a...
Well, under the SLFP banner now, it's an alliance. Yeah. Now, sometimes SJB also has an alliance. Let's say SJB, Muslim Congress and SJB work in an alliance. That doesn't make Muslim Congress part of the SJB or the SJB part of the Muslim Congress. So likewise...
So it's a very tenuous link, but then it's
correct.
Easy to kind of...
So I was seen on stage, sharing the same stage with Pillayan. So that is why that link is there. Yeah. And in terms of Ampitiya Sumanratnathera, I mean, that guy has always, I don't think I need to say much about him. So whoever updated this wiki page, the source that is quoted, probably had, some reason to discredit me or...
Right, because, I mean, if I can just read it out, it says, he was an associate of the Rajapaksa regime and extreme Buddhist monk Sumanarathana, and a supporter of paramilitary leader Pillayan. That's exactly how it's worded there. In a certain light.
I don't really take too much of... I don't waste my energy on worrying about some of these things, because it is what it is. I mean, if people want to...
No control over it.
I have no control over it. I've tried to change it a few times. And every time, if we can try it now, if you want, if you change it, it will go back to
the
original one. So I actually spoke to some friends, also said they'll help me out, but I've never followed up on it. Okay. Because generally I tend to think that, people would not really take Wikipedia seriously, but I think after this conversation now, since that has come up, I should probably take it a bit more. Probably try and fix it. Yes.
Well, I mean, it's go ahead.
Right?
Well,
you can change things on Wikipedia.
It's crowdsourced, which means anyone can go and make an edit. Whether it's accepted or not, I think depends on.
With regard to politically sensitive or controversial individuals, it takes a lot of time. It's like a vote.
Yeah,
that's what he was saying. Voted thing.
When you make a change, there will be others who will be inquired whether this information is correct, whether this source is correct.
Right.
And if there is a vote, it depends on whether...
Right, so somebody's making a determination that is a more credible source than something else. Sounds a little bit like a truth commission.
Yes. So I will put a formal request to the GGY group to help me.
We will do whatever we can.
This. You all have, I'm sure you all have access to a lot of good people in the industry, IT sector and all that. We have a lot of, professionals here. So maybe you can help me resolve this.
We'll see. Maybe Chiranda can. So Shanakiyan, just to move on from this.
Sure.
So you were finally elected in 2020 as part of the TNA alliance.
Correct.
I think the motivation behind this is clear. You really had an interest in politics and so on. But since coming into the legislature, has it been a largely positive experience for you, or has it been a disappointment to see the our legislative body behaving and acting the way it does?
Well, I've always had an interest in politics since I was very young. So it's not that I didn't expect what I saw in Parliament, but this 2020, the Parliament members, I think, you see, when just as soon as the presidential election happened, generally we have a trend of Parliament elections happening. And the trend and the hype that the presidential election, whoever wins it, carries through the
There's a
Parliament
wave,
election. It's a wave.
There's a wave effect.
So this particular Parliament, in fact, as opposed to, there have been parliaments that have been no better, but this particular Parliament, some of the members, I believe, don't even, I don't think I would even see them as fit enough to be elected in a local council. So they,
Absolutely.
yes. So the reason for that is because SLPP had this wave. So, one person I was told was elected to Parliament only because he was making sure that the former First Lady was, safe during the period where they lost. So he was given nomination.
Like a bodyguard.
Something like
sort
that.
of, okay.
So then I was told another person saying, when Mahinda lost, he was the first person to go and visit him in Hambantota, so we voted for him.
Yeah.
So that kind of, the only reason why some of them got elected was because of this.
Yeah.
So when they come into Parliament, I think their capacity in terms of, let's say, not about lawmaking, but even just basic decency was not there.
Yeah.
So that I was very shocked. But other than that, I think, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
And even within Parliament, we still have a few of us who try to work out things. Now, for an example, we have just today the Standing Orders Committee has approved effort that we took forward to amend the standing orders in Parliament to come up with something called post-legislative scrutiny.
Yeah.
It's called PLS. So I went to University of London recently with two of my colleagues to study about it. So those sort of things, we have been able to introduce it to Parliament, and post-legislative scrutiny basically scrutinizes legislation that has been passed to see how effective they are. So if we were to just say, this Parliament has a bad composition, there's not much we can do, then we'll be stuck. But little things, we've been able to at least get some interest from the public as, if there were proper elected representative, that the Parliament system could be better.
Right.
Some of our interventions or some of these committee systems are actually, there's not much wrong with the system. It's just that, the members who are there don't really use it for what it's supposed to be. For example, we have these consultative committees in Parliament. So generally before law is brought, it comes to the consultative committee and, it's discussed and, it's basically about the law. But over the last 3 years, these consultative committees have been purely where government MPs and opposition MPs come to resolve their day-to-day issues in their electorate. So for an example, with the Forest and Wildlife Ministry, there may be a bill, that they might bring about something to do with animal welfare. I'm just giving an example. And we may have a consultative committee, and this part of it is actually true. We spoke nothing about the bill in that committee. One MP came and said that they had problems with monkeys in Gampaha, right? Saying this monkey problem is becoming a huge issue, and wanted results, some solution for the minister to come up with. So transport
Is that when they decided to export the monkeys?
No. This is a little while before that. In fact, they wanted katutuakku to be given to people, something to shoot the monkeys. So anyway, what I'm saying is that is not the purpose of that committee.
Yeah.
But since we have members who are elected to Parliament who are of that, I am not saying I am 100 times better than others. I'm just saying that this is what I've observed.
Yeah.
So overall, the direct answer to your question is I'm not disappointed per se. I just feel that there's a lot more to be done. Yeah. And I think this political patronage is a huge problem. People, you give something, they vote you back into power.
Yes.
So that sort of thing. Now, if you look at it, like people like Nimal Siripala de Silva have been MPs and cabinet ministers forever. And next election also, I was recently saying, probably people of Badulla might re-elect him because he's given 10,000 jobs.
Yeah.
And when he was health minister, I was not in Batiklo at the time, even the laborers who would clean the drains in the Batiklo hospital would be from Badulla. because he has appointed all his supporters.
Yeah, when he was the minister, which is what happens, I think, in most ministers.
But this particular minister has been
to another level.
To a different level. When he was irrigation.
Yeah.
So even now there are some people who look after the spill gates in some of these irrigation projects. They are from Badulla. Yeah. so what I'm saying is, so there's a lot more to do, a lot of awareness to be done, a lot of that. So that's why I said that this sort of conversations are good. But I think we need to try and take this further down. I mean, I know I might be taking too long, but let me add this also. Before the Aragalaya or around the Aragalaya, there were a lot of social media pages who would, let's say if I speak in parliament, they would take it and publish it. But now if you look at it, most of the social media pages back some minister or some MP, right? So after the Aragalaya, the number of social media pages that would actually publish things that is genuine and the true narrative of the current state of affairs, they're not published on social media because some of these pages belong to people who are now in power.
Right.
So before pre-Gota days, they wanted Gota out, so they would give us publicity. So, so even the genuine messages, now if you look at the mainstream media also, all the media channels, they will only publish what they want. Now we see Dilip Jayavira wants to run for president, so obviously, you know, it will be something based on his campaign.
Right. In fact, you're walking on one of my questions later, but that's all right, no problem. Yes. But so basically you're saying, I mean, the parliament right now is a dysfunctional body. It's not really functioning the way it's meant.
Not at all, yes.
So actually when we decided to bring politicians on, we actually had a debate about who we would want to listen to. And we are focused on solutions, about looking forward. And, the consensus was that the Puhuttu and that brigade were the ones who dragged the political culture down into the gutter. So we didn't feel like there was any use in platforming them and giving them, more of a voice than they already have. Besides, they have all the media with them. They have all the social media. Actually, some social media channels have been bought over by them. Some pages have been bought over.
Just to
so that's why the messages are changing.
Just to add to what you're saying, very recently this company came and met me. And they came and met me and said, I mean, some media people said, we want to have a meeting with you. I said, yeah, of course, you can come and meet me. And they said, we are a company, we actually do social media promotion and all that. We have noticed that, you need some more social media promotion, because we need to get your message.
We need a bigger presence.
Correct. And I was like, okay, so tell me what is it that you can do? Then they were like, oh no, so we actually have this system where we go on social media and we put comments in favor of you. Yeah. And so then he told me an example. He said, look, have you noticed that in the last 6 months or so, that some of your posts seem to be getting a lot of negative comments? So I was like, yeah, I've noticed as well. I'm not too sure. So to see, there is a company that is being paid to put up 7 or 8 comments that is to create a narrative. So
Click
let's say
farms. Click farms.
So
I diagnosed that.
On your page.
My page and then Boston Lanka page.
Right.
There are targeted things. I mean, we are saying completely correct matter. You may be saying correct matter, but the comments don't
reflect that. And also, generally, as soon as a feed starts, the negative comments come in. That means they're not even listening.
They are not even listening.
They're not even listening.
The comments are not in context with what we are saying.
Right.
And also, so there are different platforms who actually do analytics on Facebook. So what they said was, on anything to do with me, the comments and feedback that I get in the first day are always negative. The comments that I get after that are not so it's not organic. The first 10 comments or so are basically bot accounts.
Right.
So what I was my earlier point was, dialogues like this need to be taken further to the grassroots, where, let's say we must even, if there is any way, if at all, we must even do this on a district basis. Let's say there are a lot of progressive people who got together during this Gota Go protest in different parts. There were Gota Go Gama Kandi, there was a Gota Go Gama Gol. Now, all these people again are now, dysfunctional, disoriented, because there is nobody that they can really rally around. So, there is a lot of space. For us, now I'm an elected MP from Batiklo. Sometimes while I'm seated here, I have to deal with day-to-day issues in Batiklo, because that is how the system is such that somebody gets arrested by the police and, some domestic problem also, they are so used to calling the MP. I get those calls as well, but then if I don't manage those, to make a change, you need to be in a position of power. Without that, you can't really even, you only talk. So therefore, I need to manage those as well, at least to an extent, whilst attending to these sort of things. So I think, therefore, it's harder for us to go down to that level to, try and engage with all these people who are part of, these sort of groups. But I think it's important, like this dialogue that's happening here is taken further into, we can support it, we can help it, because we are not the audience who need to be, I think most of the audience here, I say this all the time, when I go on Newsline also, most of the audience who follow Newsline or, some Face the Nation, they're aware, but it's just that they are not able to actually do anything. Yeah. It's the audience that watch Balaya, other than, Vada Pitiya, that is the audience we need to try and reach out to because we are only a small number of the.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so that's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point. I think that is our attempt also to try to reach maybe the people who are the swing vote in an election, people who might be able to make a difference. Yeah,
At the same time, it's the Colombo crowd that seems to think everything is hunky-dory and...
Right, who's disengaged. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Rasamanickam went to a certain topic about these bot accounts and, this online safety bill has something, legislation about the bot accounts and all that. So there is currently an issue now. I had to come to that topic later on, but there is a big issue now. I spoke to, there was Anuruddha Bandara had published a list of the lawyers who were involved, people who were involved with drafting this said legislation. And now I spoke to several of them. All were saying, no, we are not, we have resigned, we have stepped out, we have this thing. But the Ministry of Public Security had responded to an RTI and accused that these are the people who were behind this bill. Now, when I spoke to several others, they said there are so many others who have names were not listed. So basically, there's a big issue. Are you aware of any oversight committee with regard to this bill that was done in Parliament in 2021? Are you aware of any oversight committee that was conducted by the Parliament? Like, there's a due process in Parliament. You had an oversight committee, consultations. So what I heard, the minister had wanted this bill to be drafted in 1 month. When this matter was given to them in 2021 to be drafted in 1 month, they have said no, we can't do it, and many have stepped out. Basically, without consultations, this whole thing has gone under, and Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, who is the current Justice Minister, has refused to take this up to Parliament. And this has resulted in the Public Security Ministry. This is a huge...
Ministry of Public Security didn't have any part in drafting this. I think he also had said it. Yes. In some press statement.
And right now, nobody is claiming this bill. Nobody is coming forward to say that they were part of the drafting.
I don't know how it is correct. I read somewhere that this bill was drafted somewhere in 2016.
No. That
was the earlier
version. But that was a Maubima paper article. It was a Maubima paper article where on the 7th of October, this minister had convened certain parties. But when I asked the secretary of the ministry, private secretary of the secretary of the ministry, he said he doesn't know about such meeting. There is a lack of, who is doing what here? Yeah. And then the Tiranalas, though he said this about the 2016 thing, this was completely after the Singaporean law about the social media that this came up. It couldn't have been in 2016. There was a environment for this type of drafting in 2018. That is when the Ampara Digana Teldeni riots broke out, and there was a talk about this.
don't think we can advance that discussion.
Unless
you're aware of something that you
No, I can add to that. Obviously, the problem here is that the only thing that is stopping the government from bringing laws to suppress people's voice or even against democracy, the only thing that is there today is that these bills can be challenged in the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court will only look at it to see if it's constitutionally correct or incorrect. It doesn't look at it to see what sort of impact it will.
It's morally correct.
Correct. But unfortunately, the problem is that it all goes back to our first point that I made, that the Parliament MPs can easily be convinced to vote for these things without even understanding what it is.
Yeah,
so the only thing that can, I don't want to get too technical into was this brought into this committee, was it this ministry, because at the end of the day, it's passed by MPs.
Yeah.
So if the MPs can be bought over, if the MPs can be convinced that these are good. Now, I'll tell you something. In May 2022, when the height of the shortages, I was walking towards the lunch area at Parliament, and there was another SLP MP. He was walking beside me, and he said, "May okkama May masen iwarai me apita ude group meeting tiba basil lokakawa heta tel." So I know that at that time there is no way that even if a ship leaves a certain country to take a certain amount of days for it to get to the port.
Yeah.
But they so blindly believe. He was convinced.
Is it the same guy who said dollars were coming on a ship?
I have no. I don't want to comment on who it is, because if I do, then people. It's not. Because this wasn't something that he said in Parliament. This was on while we were having a casual walk to the restaurant. But so people like that, somebody comes and says that this online safety bill will ensure that your houses will not get affected like it did last time. That if they can be convinced to vote and get this bill passed. So even with the Kotalawala Defence Bill or the current ATA, the Anti-Terrorism Act, all that has been put off is only because of people's protest and the people's voice. So even with this online safety bill, which is why, it's a very sad state of affairs. People say, you all are in Parliament, you should stop this in Parliament, but you all are asking us to stop it. That is how bad it is, right? So that is about this online safety. But far more concerning about the online safety bill is that it's only going to be 5 people appointed by the president who are going to decide what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
And imagine the number. Even in Sri Lanka, people call 119, and I've watched this audio thing where saying, "Sir, gahaganna, sir, kauda gahaganne, balle koi pusi koi gahaganna." They have called 119 and they're saying that. It's a joke, but they have actually called. So, in a country where, our mindsets, people's capacities like that, online safety, people can complain about anybody.
Yeah.
And, anybody can be.
I think the lack of safeguards is very clear. I think more than 40 different organizations have filed petitions in Supreme Court, including our group. Thank you for that. But if I can just quickly, since we're on the topic, this was part of one of the questions that I wanted to bring up. Sorry, we always put up some slides.
I know what to do.
The plethora of bad bills, that have been put forward. And now we know that we have a body with the composition that we have in Parliament, essentially without a mandate, and we have a president who's unelected and so on. So do you see a correlation between all these bad bills and the lack of elections? And also, to add another part to it, how will it impact not just basic human rights, but especially minority rights, the rights that y'all are fighting for your community? How would that be impacted in the long term?
So I think all these bills and all these things that are happening around the country is just, is to remain in power. What can we do to stay in power, come back to power? This is the root cause. Now, for an example, in 2005 or in the late 90s, when Mrs. Chandrika Bandaranaikumartunga contested, her mandate was to abolish executive presidency. That's why people voted for her. 2005 was to end the war. Mahinda Rajapaksa, said, if you elect me, I'll end the war. 2010 was obviously he won the war, so it was that wasn't. 2015 was good governance. Yahapalne, we'll put these people behind. 2020 was national security. 2025 obviously is going to be economy. Anybody who is going to be able to convince the public about a good economic turnaround and the rupee to get stable. That is the sentiment that people have. Now, current government, it hasn't met its revenue targets. It has, I'm sure, since Dr. Harsha was here last week, he would have given you a good dose about the financial numbers and all that, but so I don't want to get into too much detail. But IMF has put forward conditions, that Sri Lanka should have done it ages ago, 17 or so. Governance issues, I think 16, sorry.
16.
So, if we are to, under this regime, if we are to achieve some sort of economic stability that could convince the people to vote for this government at 2025 elections, I don't think there will be any preparation of, government's prep work on these online safety bills and all these things. I think the government is fearful of, losing popularity because they are not able to deliver on the economy. So then how do they convince people to vote for them at 2025?
Yeah.
So at that rate, I think these are all measures that are being taken to try and, in case if it comes, these are all,
safeguards for
safety precautions for themselves.
Suppress information also.
Suppress information to, make sure that, to rather ensure that people don't get on the streets again. Even now, let's say my electorate, for an example, when these Easter Sunday issues came out, some young people wrote, people who support me, wrote saying, why has there been no credible investigation into this? 3 or 4 of them have been summoned to the 4th floor, that's the terrorism investigation department,
for asking that
just for a Facebook post. Now, who complained? How? There are bigger issues in this country than a Facebook post asking questions about the Easter Sunday attack. So why is that happening? Is because the reason why it's happening is because it's too. Now, if that boy called me and said, sir, I can't go home. My wife is, really upset because basically she has 2 kids. They have 2 children. This guy has put a Facebook post. He's summoned to TID. He's been shut down. So this is just one case of many cases that have happened in the past. So this is all just basically to instill fear in people so that they don't, rise up or even voice their statement. So this online safety bill is part of a larger scheme.
Actually, my concern is online safety bill, whether things are going to be really, really bad and they want to shut the people.
Yeah.
What is coming up?
Yeah, what's going to happen?
For example, they postpone the presidential election. That would be crossing a line, wouldn't it? Then, you could see another wave, rising up amongst the population. That would be the...
Well, no. Well, presidential elections, as per the constitution, must happen by the end of next year. But very recently, we heard some rumor about executive presidency being abolished as a way of. But of course, that's something like that we would definitely support.
But today, Vijayadasa Rajapaksa in Parliament said that conversation is not even being had. He made a statement today in Parliament saying the conversation about the executive presidency is not on the table. Today.
Yesterday, day before yesterday, he spoke.
Yes, I know.
But is Vijayadasa Rajapaksa the president of the country?
Well,
So,
I just want to add to about this where you said about TID being involved in this Facebook post. So the problem here is they are trying to say what is the truth and false. Now, I have already gone to Supreme Court with regard to the online safety bill. In my petition, I have cited my already FR case where I have been arrested for saying COVID doesn't spread in water. I said it doesn't spread in water, and they arrested me, and they charged me. There's a MC case pending, and now what the government is saying several years later, they are admitting that they were misled. They went to Supreme Court. The state went to Supreme Court and misled the Supreme Court to believe that it spreads in water. It's a threat to national security, and they got the original petition. I was also a petitioner then. That those petitions also got dismissed. So the danger is the state is going to narrate what is the truth in a country. Then the freedom of opinion is completely taken away. And I believe a lawyer told me about Section 19 of the ICCPR Act. What is proposed in this online safety bill completely violates the provisions of Section 19 in the ICCPR Act. So I don't know who.
Of truth.
I think the only way to make sure that it doesn't come is, it's unfortunately the public need to, raise their concerns, and this conversation needs to happen because some of these MPs, some of the public also say, because some of they say, never වැඩි නේද YouTube කාර්යය ඕන එකක් දාන්න පුළුවන්, all that is there. So there is that angle to it that people run with. So we have to do a coordinated campaign to make sure that this bill doesn't get passed.
Yeah, there's another story about that, but I don't know whether I should get into it now. But one SLPP member on a TV show basically said about a teacher doing a TikTok video where she was showing her belly button. And that is why we need this law, because that we are corrupting our children by doing that. But you're right, there are so many asinine arguments that are being made to justify this coming up.
One thing is that, I wouldn't, if we keep saying SLPP, there are bad fellows in every party. Just because it's not just the SLPP that's the problem.
Yeah.
There are some members in a lot of parties.
There's a higher
Percentage. we seem to be
higher percentage of members in SLPP, so higher percentage of bad guys in SLPP. Because in all fairness, it's the crisis that we are facing today. All the parties that have governed this country, all the members who have been part of have some response. They can't.
There has been a progressive downward slide in the political culture.
Correct.
Right. I mean, that has been
the quality of elected representatives also been.
Pradeshia Sabhas feed into the
Parliament
directly.
That has been a problem. So if we can, sorry.
I have to ask you this question.
I keep talking about this, that people now, I can get your mobile number from going to mantri.lk, parliament.lk, or searching it on Google. So basically, I believe people are not engaged with these people who have been sent to parliament. So I think the best narrative now, what I did with the online safety bill is I went with Sudatta Creations, Sudatta Tilakasiri. I had an interview. I said, call the president. Here's his mobile number. Here's Vijaydasa's number. Here's Tiranalas's number. Because people don't voice, and these politicians think that they can do anything they want. At the end of the day,
I think they understand what the people are saying. It's just they don't want to listen. They have there's a lack of shame attached to what happens to a certain extent.
If they're police-free,
Yeah.
they will have
to answer to the
Okay,
people.
all right, okay.
Going back to this
Yeah.
presidential election, I mean, there are all kinds of rumors going around that they're thinking of replacing it with an executive president so that Ranil can stay in power for another 2 years. I mean, have you heard any? Are you able to say?
Taking our friends' advice, we need to pick up the phone and call Vikramasinghe.
That's a
and,
dark
No, I mean, no, but I'm because
Please don't encourage him.
no, the
I already published it. It's 077.
No, here.
the reason why I said that is because it's only the president himself who would be able to answer that question as to what exactly is going to happen. But I don't think he is also clear.
Constitutionally, what would happen?
So constitutionally-
If the executive presidential.
No, the term ends. He's
No, if they abolish it,
They have to change the constitution.
Correct. So they'll have to. So basically, there
but
are.
then he'll still have to be elected to be prime minister. Surely?
Correct. So no, but there are differences exactly. So the
That
problem is there are
We try to
many
avoid that.
many discussions are in place. So one, these are all speculation. So generally, as MPs, I don't think I want to speculate myself. But since the question has come, I will give you a few speculations that I have heard as well. Is that one was that even president is still waiting to see if will we get the IMF second tranche? Will we be able to come to an agreement with China on our debt restructure, because the private lenders are saying till China agrees on percentages, we won't. Will different countries support us financially, right? So even though tourism, the number of tourists are picking up, the amount of money that they seem to be spending is not up to what it used to be. Those days we used to get less tourists who spend more. Now the tourists who come, stay at a backpackers, eat there, have a juice in the.
Or they're paying it there, and how much of that money is actually coming in?
I think it's not necessarily that's the issue. It's that we are targeting certain markets and we are focused on volume rather than getting.
Correct. And by doing that, what we are doing is that a lot of the high spending tourists don't want to come to a place where there are thousands of other different, different markets you can't combine both of those. So anyway, that's not the point. So what I was trying to get to was that economically, the financial situation, when it doesn't improve, then the president will have to look at other options to stay in power.
Right.
So one of these things that we heard was to abolish the executive presidency, have a referendum. So to abolish the executive presidency, you can't just do it within parliament. The people will have to 2/3 and referendum also, because the people will have to, because it's directly executive, the people will have to also decide.
Right.
So along with that, they may think about extending the term of the parliament was also. So at the referendum, president's election and parliament, that was also discussed.
Right.
Then also there were other things. There's another group that speculate that parliament elections may happen before if SLPP decide to field their own candidate. Now, right now, SJB has a well-oiled party mechanism up to the grassroots levels, because they have a district leader, then they have an electorate leader, then they have a even my party has that. In the north and east, from the Pradeshya Sabha level to the national level, we have a very well. So if I want to disseminate a message now, I can call my Batiklo district Ilangai Thamarasikachi secretary and say, can you send this message? So he will call the 3 electorate leaders, then they'll call the 10 Pradeshya Sabha leaders, they will call the 10 Kottash, that's the wards, they'll call the 10 wards. So we can get the message across within 24 hours.
Right.
The only 2 parties that have a well-oiled grassroots up to the grassroots levels is the SLPP and the SJB. JVP does have it, but the numbers are not as big as the SJB and the SLPP. So if SLPP decide to field their own candidate, then obviously Ranil Wickremesinghe's party doesn't have a... Yes,
right.
So then therefore, okay, so if that's the part, so president can dissolve parliament anytime.
Right.
So if president goes for a parliament election, so what I'm saying is I don't want to come on a talk program and speculate just like the public, but since that question came, I don't want to.
Actually, it was a question I was going to ask you later in a different vein. There's a cartoon today which I was going to put up and get your comments on it.
so therefore, we will all have to, only option is to call the president and ask him what exactly he's going to do.
Okay.
Other than that, we can all speculate, but constitutionally, a new president needs to be in the chair by November next year.
Right.
So that is what the constitution says. But other than that, we can all only speculate in today's.
The presidential election will have to be declared before that.
No, so that's why I said a new president. No.
6 months or something.
A new president will have to be on that seat by November. So obviously 6 weeks for campaigning, 2 weeks for nominations, 8 weeks. So
right.
I mean, let's just.
I think we're not going to solve this.
Yeah.
Right. So let's move on.
Correct.
So one of the issues that you have been vocal about recently is the Batiklo land grab issue. In fact, you were one of the few members of parliament that actually talked about it regularly. We followed you on social media and so on, and because of your vocal sort of messaging, we also took it up and we talked about it. But we don't see anything in the mainstream media about it. So would you be able to explain a little bit about the land grab issue, the way the archaeological department has been sort of used as a weapon in this sort of an agenda that's going on?
Also, the president, before he took off, had
we have a thing on that. Right? We'll get to the next. That we'll talk about next.
Okay.
But also the land grabs and also the treatment of protesters. So do you see the tension that you believe that there's a
go
serious
from one to the other, you're
okay,
asking.
go ahead.
If I was to answer all of this, I'll take the next hour.
All right,
So I also like chatting a lot, so I might just get carried away. So let's go from one to the other.
Yeah.
So I think since the independent, now this is a very sensitive, touchy topic.
Yeah.
A lot of people who look at me and say, Shanakiyan, such a good, Sri Lankan, he's a young person. As soon as I answer this question, they'll be like, this Tamil racist fellow. That narrative, it's very easy to think that, but if I'm to give you an honest answer, then I have to tell you the real situation. But, a lot of people say, Sinhala, the Kollek, and then as soon as I say something like this, they'll be like, Jativadia has come, Prabhakaran has come in sheepskin kind of thing. So, Kotia has come in sheepskin kind of thing. But then, it is what it is. You have to be honest and you have to say what it is. People accept you for, but actually you say, and if I'm not making it up, it's a different thing. So, since independence in 1948, the Sinhala population in the eastern province has increased by 800% since 1948. That is, since we got independence from the British. 840 something percent, let's say 800%. But whereas in districts like Gampaha, Mondragala, Gaul, Matra, the rest of the country outside the north and the east, the Sinhala population has only increased by 230%. So 230% is the natural growth rate. So the 800% in the eastern province is artificially brought in. And the reason for that is to change the demography. So that is a mindset that every leader since independence has had. Started from D.S. Ranayaka, who's brought in colonization schemes, which continued under Bandaranaike, which then JR, all of them part of it. Every single leader up to Ranil Wickremesinghe, every single leader has either endorsed it or has been actively doing it or has turned a blind eye towards it. So in terms of this Mahavali issue, so when the Mahavali Act was passed, before the Mahavali Act was passed, a lot of these lands that were in Batiklo and all these state land were never really people, in the late 40s or late 50s, there were no real boundaries or there was no real, not like in Colombo where you have a survey plan, deeds and all that. People clear a plot of area, they do their cultivation. That was how it happened. But when the Mahavali Act was passed, all these lands were gazetted under Mahavali. But since the Mahavali irrigation project hasn't materialized 100%, there has been no water that has come to Batiklo or Shilko or beyond Anuradhapura. There is no water. Anuradhapura also it came only 2 years ago. So since the Mahavali water never came, Mahavali gathered under Mahavali, but the status quo has been maintained because people just do their, so in Batiklo, we have about 250,000 acres of paddy land that we cultivate, and that is based on this is the Maha season where people do their cultivation based on rainfall. So everywhere that they can cultivate, they cultivate during the season, and that the period for starting the agriculture season is between 5th of October and 15th of October. So at the district meeting, we take a decision. It's called a cultivation meeting. We take a decision saying, okay, from before the 5th of October. So basically, the cultivation meeting, the cattle that the people who cultivate paddy also own cattle. Yeah. So some people own cattle but don't cultivate paddy, but it's the farmers are generally somehow they're all connected. So when the paddy season starts, the cattle need to be taken away to the pasture land because otherwise they'll destroy the crops.
Paddy, yeah.
So we are talking about a herd of 600,000 cattle. And unfortunately, the registered numbers are around 350,000, which is because if you have more than 2 or 3 cows, your samurdhi is cut off. Your social welfare schemes, you get cut off. So what they do is they register one, but they have more than 2 or 3. So that in a way is also wrong. But we are talking about little numbers we have people who are robbing the state billions of rupees, by not paying their loans back. Yeah. But these people are also, I'm not saying what they're doing is correct, but then, I think in the grand scheme of things, so they don't register. So the real numbers of the cattle are around 600,000. So now, unless these cattle are taken to the pasture land, the paddy season can't start. So every year, this has been done. This has been a practice for hundreds of years. So this pasture land also, it's very hard to imagine. We are talking about 20,000 acres of land. So in these 20,000 acres of land, there have, naturally it has become a grazing land. So let's say there's like a huge, let's say 10 times the size of a football field. And then it's covered by dense forests. And then 2 kilometers from there, there's another huge area, again covered by forest. So this pasture land is not something that has been created systematically. So it's not like, like where New York you have, 22 and 21. It's not like that. Yeah. It's basically just haphazardly spread across. So the practice has been that these cattle are taken and they graze around in this area. So, but it has been gazetted under Mahavali. But since the Mahavali water never came, nobody really bothered about it. It's called Mahavali. But in the late 60s and 50s, just like how the Tamil, and also 90% of the cattle farm owners are Tamil because they are from Batiklo. So that also I must mention, which is why it's becoming an issue. During that time on the border of Ronnaru and Batiklo, there has also been this village called Diulapatana. Now, Diulapatana village had about 30 or 25 or 30 or 40 Sinhala families who actually did their cultivation in that area. No doubt about that. And they never got into any conflicts with the cattle farm because they were right at the border. I'm talking about 20,000 acres. So you can imagine, I mean, it's hard to imagine, but try to imagine the size of the extent somewhere in the corner. So when the war started in the 80s and so on, these Diulapatana people actually had to leave the area because the war was there and these thick forests were taken over by, militant groups. But the Tamil cattle owners, because it was cattle, they still were able to graze the cattle, and most Hindus don't eat beef. So therefore, there was no issue with shooting, robbing, and all that also. But after 2009, people of Diulapatana wanted to come back. But when they came back, this Diulapatana village, 40 years later, had all overgrown forests because it's all overgrown. And I mean, obviously, think about this front landscape land that we have here, the lawn. If it's not maintained for 40 years, it'll become a jungle. So when these the Diulapatana people came back, they saw the pasture land and they were like, okay, let's cultivate on the pasture land because there's no need to clear the forest. There's no need to do anything. It's pure. I don't know if you've seen the videos of the pasture. It's just like a football field. All you have to do is bring your tractor, do
Plow,
the prep
and then-
work, and then you just do the sowing. I mean, and then the rain comes and it becomes a crop. So Diulapatana, these people, natural. I mean, that issue must have been resolved, but then it became more of a political affair where people were being brought in busloads and saying, okay, there's so much land, go do whatever you want. So it grew, and now it has come to a point where we don't know the actual numbers because imagine 20,000 acres, and there are lots of these pasture lands, grazing land amongst. So if you go by road, you will not even see these pasture land. You have to get down, and cattle know exactly how to go. So now monks have gotten involved. So now in 2016, when this issue actually became quite a controversy, at the time the governor for Eastern Province, Austin Fernando, said this is wrong because what happens? There's a conflict. These guys who come from different paths would go and start maize cultivation. And 2 or 3 days, 4 days into it, it'll be like very tiny, it'll sprout and it'll come up. And the 600,000 cattle, they don't know, they'll
need it.
and then these people say, okay, our damages are 100,000, you must pay us 100,000. If not, they keep a cow tied up. So then Austin Fernandez said this is wrong, and he removed all of them overnight. And in 2020, Gagota came up with this task force for food security or some ridiculous thing and appointed Anuradha Yahampath as one of the members. She then thought that she's going to make the country have a surplus of corn. I don't know what she thought. She brought in hundreds of people, anybody and everybody who wanted to come. So people from Matara, Gaul, Ratnapura. Let's say you have a friend who's in Ratnapura, you say, hey, Machang, there's some land, why don't you come? And they'll come in truckloads. So it went out of control. So I spoke from the Grama Sevaka up to Gota at the time. Gota said, Badering we need. So I said, so what about the cattle? He said, why can't we keep them in a certain space and give them I mean, this is basically cattle that graze. It's not like Ambevala farm. He actually even right now, I think President also sometime because one of the things that he suggested was, can't we find some food for them and give it to them till the pasture land issue is solved? This actually it's on the. I'm not lying. This is on the media. Because somebody who's watching this may think that how can someone say that? It's on the president's media release saying that president will ensure that there's enough feed for the cattle. So 600,000 cattle, where are you going to cut grass from?
Yeah.
So President Gota also thought, these cows only have 9 liters of milk. We must bring cows that give 20 acres. But so why do you want to destroy an industry that's already there? And now everyone's going for organic milk, and the cow's milk is proper organic because they graze around. 9 liters is by grazing in 10 or 15 kilometers, not one place where they're fed, and they just take the milk out. So that's another thing.
Yeah.
So then in 2020, we filed a case in the Court of Appeal, a writ application saying that these people must be removed. And then the court said, yes, that's wrong, and then instructed the Mahavali to remove them. I was the petitioner. Honorable Sumandiran was my lawyer. So they were asked to remove. But the Mahavali went ahead and said, this is Mahavali land, no encroachment allowed. Right under that sticker, there's a lady selling fertilizer and whatever is necessary for these farmers to do it. And when the Mahavali officers go to speak to her and say this is illegal, she'll call the governor and say Katagaran. So she did that with the district secretary, the government agent of Betiklo. At the time, government agent said, tell the governor to call my number if she wants to talk. 2 days later, she was removed from Betiklo, the district secretary. So the administration was also, lot of pressure was put on. So this pasture land issue is something that has been created on purpose. Now, Ampitiya Sumanratana recently came, the same person who the Wikipedia claims that I have close links to, came to Batiklo town with broomsticks and whatever. And the reason when somebody asked him why he came, they said, Rasamanickam ge konda kadanna aave.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. There's one more. There's one more that says Konda Kadanna. Because I took it and I sent it to, now we don't have IGP to send also. No. My secretary is here. I told him to send it. Huh?
3 weeks. He got a 3-week extension.
No, but CC has not approved, and President is saying, no, I have the power. CC doesn't have the power to revoke. So there's a constitutional crisis there. Let's not get into that as well. So I told my security, let's not write the name of the IGP. Let's say IGP. On the letterhead, you say Police Patituma. So that way, whoever is the Police Patituma can take it as his. So anyway, so I took that video. So now he's gotten involved. Now Anuradha Yahampat has gone yesterday and placed a statue there. I don't know if you saw that. Has gone and said, "Me Niti Virodhi lesa." We say Niti Virodhi. They are saying me vaga karna kandayamta බුදුන්ගේ ආශිර්වාදය ලැබෙන්න බුදු පිළිමයක් තියෙනවා අපේ මේ this enough. I mean, it takes 4 hours to go from the main road. So this is all politicized. So these are all part of a larger plan to change the demography of the eastern province. So I'll give you. Well, I don't want to draw. That's a very, very. I know that's not a yes or no answer. So now, in the district of Ampara, there was no district of Ampara till the 60s, right? So the Ampara district up until 1989. There were 3 Tamil members of parliament who were elected from Ampara, 2 or 3. But overnight, the government of the time, I think Mr. P. Dayaratna, former minister, took an initiative and they annexed a divisional secretary from the Polonnaruwa district called Dehiyatta Kandiya with the district of Ampara and annexed a divisional secretariat of Padiyatalawa that belonged to Badulla with Ampara. Overnight, the number of Tamil MPs went from 3 to 1 and single MPs went from 1 to 3.
The demographic change.
Yeah.
So like gerrymandering in the
that is how the eastern province population from 1948 to now, the Sinhala population has increased by 800%. As opposed to Gampaha Matra. Now, we are not opposed to, I mean, find me a Sinhala family who want to come and buy a land in Batiklo. I will help them. People say if Tamils can live in Colombo. No, Tamils were brought in busloads to Colombo and asked to settle here. I'm saying if you say that what the government's actions are justified in Matara, there are Tamil votes around 40 to 50,000, but not enough to elect a MP. Let's say you will contribute 2,000 from each district from the north and the east. 16,000 if the government agrees to settle them in Matara, then we may have a Tamil MP elected from Matara. Then Sinhala people being settled, artificially is justified. So what I'm saying is when I say these things, if I don't explain myself clearly, someone watching this would say, look here, he's saying that Sinhala people must be removed. Now, it's not just the ordinary people. What bothers me is that I was in the president's meeting. We had a meeting with the president regarding this issue. The army fellow who came, I mean, I shouldn't say fellow, some major general, he was so hostile towards me. I've never seen an army officer behave like that in front of a president. I've attended meetings with Mahinda, Maitri, Gota and Ranil. Generally, the military, they only speak when they're spoken to, especially when the president is there. This guy was out talking out of turn, saying this MP is lying. He's saying 600,000 cattle, but they only have 350,000 cattle registered. And then I said, let me correct you. I was trying to tell him the point of this Samurdhi. He said, wait, I'm not done. Very hostile. And some new now major general, someone I can't remember his name. And then not the commander in charge for Sri Lanka, this is the one for Batiklo. Then he has made a presentation in support of these encroachers. saying Balanna sir made Duppat Minisu. So what we're saying is not about Duppat or Posat. What we're saying is, can somebody just go and destroy a parcel, and where are these cattle going to go? I mean, what are we going to do with it? So that is one thing, the parcel. But the archaeology one is another thing. So now let's see archaeology. I'm sure all of us have been to Polonnaruwa and Anuradhapura and seen the ruins. Now in Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa, we see Ruwanvelisa. Not Ruwanvelisa is a bad example. Let's say like a depleted depleted site that used to be a former Buddhist stupa or something. It's a ruin that is archaeology protects it. There is no reconstruction. The problem in the north and the east is that there used to be a temple. We all say, okay, irrespective of it was Tamil Buddhists or Sinhala Buddhists who, did their religious affairs there, archaeology must be preserved. We are for preserving, but what we are against is the reconstruction. Let's say if there was a stupa there, they're saying, okay, there was a stupa here, we are going to now rebuild a stupa.
Not preserve preserve the ruins or whatever, but to build
this is what
something
happened in Mullaitivu. Mullaitivu, this Kurundurmala affair, there was obviously there was a Sandakada Pahana, all that was there. But the military blocked off public access against the court order, took clay and rebuilt a shrine there and said, this is how it was. I mean, that is against archaeology. It's not preserving. No? So, but then apparently in the act there is something that says restoring also there is. Preserving and restoration. So they can somehow get away with it. But so archaeology is another problem. So this is all part of a plan. Now Batiklo is a hot topic because Batiklo district is the only district where there is no MP who is Sinhala. Trinco has a Sinhala MP. Ampar has 3. Batiklo doesn't. Now I'm not saying that I have a problem with naturally people moving to Batiklo and they grow and the numbers increase and there's an electoral representative. It's no problem at all. But when it's artificially done, obviously in my opinion, that's not fair. But then if a lot of people say, okay, Sri Lankan, we all must unite as Sri Lankan, that means I must not talk about issues like this. Because they say, it's Sri Lankan, okay, you forget Sri Lankan, api okko meka jatiyak. But would they accept the same preachers in reverse if I'm allowed to bring 10,000 people to I had an interesting conversation this morning with someone, SLPP elected fellow. I never talked to him. Came and sat next to me and he was telling me, he was telling me about, in 25,000 Tamils, Sinhala people were there in Jaffna before the war. I said, in the 70s, Anuradhapura had a mayor who was Tamil. He said, it's very childish. So overall, the problem here is the state's involvement in changing the demography. That is the problem. I don't think that anybody would accept that. So this archaeology, Mahavali, forest, wildlife, all these are tools that are being used to change the demography. It was from the population has changed from 0 to 800% since 1948. So and in the Ampara district, it's 1,200%. 1,000% higher than Gampaha Matra, the single population increase. So naturally the people of those areas are going to oppose that. And as elected MPs representing them, if we don't voice their concerns, obviously there will be somebody else who will voice that, because I can be Sri Lankan, I can, advocate for a better future for all of us. But if I don't address the concerns that my the people who elect me say, then next time they'll elect somebody who actually addresses their concerns.
So it's a complex socioeconomic problem, but a genuine problem that needs to be addressed in the area.
Correct.
But now that it's cloaked in this Sinhala Buddhist nationalism and all these other elements that have been brought into it, it's almost like a quagmire now, right? It's like something that exactly. So
more than unspeakable, I sometimes wonder if people want people to speak about it. That protest that happened when you asked about women the protesters being pushed around and all that. So the whole point about that particular incident was the protesters were never, today's the 33rd day. It has been a very peaceful protest. They've been protesting with begging bowls. They've been trying to get their message across, and like you very correctly said, the mainstream media has not really taken it up. But the day before, the monk was able to block the road off, abuse the police officer in raw filth, abuse the president of the country in raw filth. And whilst he was allowed to do that, these peaceful protesters were on the side of the road. And obviously, I went there because they said, you also have to come because It's the president that we are protesting. They didn't protest against the president. They said, we want the president to understand how serious this issue is, because that's why they came. Not to say president must not come to Batiklo. They said president must see this.
Yeah.
So the police came and said, here, you can't stay, you must clear out. This is president's. When then they brought in the water cannon, they brought in the police barricades, I mean, human barricades.
Yeah.
And they were, so people saying, why didn't you use the same method with Ampiti Sumanratna yesterday?
Yeah.
So this kind of got...
Yeah, the selective application of the
Correct.
law and things like that. This is something we have constantly talked about.
Correct.
In fact, there's a question about the police which Gihan has. But before that, Lisha, this is what you were referring to earlier, right? Shanaki, you tweeted this earlier about that meeting that you had with the president. Is the military officer there?
He was here. I think you can't see it on the tweets. He's next to him. This is the senior DIG for police, Ajit Rohana. The military guy was right next to him.
But now in this meeting, the president gave certain instructions. Are you? Do you have any confidence that those instructions will be carried out? I think
not at all.
Partially answered that. Disha, you wanted to ask something, no? About this is the one you wanted to ask about.
So this is the one where the president had given instructions that these encroachers had to be pulled out, and the army, nobody's following his instructions.
So basically, president is also in a bit of a situation because the lot of people are trying to use this issue as a platform to create some sort of a narrative in the South, saying the main thing is, that's why I said this 25 rupee comment business earlier. I said this Rasamanickam Naginira Palate Sinhalaya Elavai. This kind of narrative, Ranil Lekar Udav Karai. That sort of, so in fairness, some of these issues, Ranil also, even though he's executive president, he has to manage some of these. I mean, we can't always say, we have to also understand practical concerns that, he may have. So we have to also be sensitive to that. But in this particular issue, president said encroachment is wrong. Police must get an order to remove these people because they're encroaching on Mahavali land. In the meantime only, he was talking about, in the meantime only, we'll give the cattle some grass. That dialogue also came. And but the problem is, president very clearly said, this is pasture land. Monks have no business in it. Neither do others. So I think he meant me. So I said straight away, sir, I will not even go that way. If you resolve this, I mean, I am only there because it's not resolved. I have other things, better things to do than go and protest against this. So then,
in fact, he has directly accused you of certain things in the past too, right? I think there was an issue where he said he condemned you for, I think, something you said about the houses being burned or something like that.
No, he...
Don't burn.
I think probably accused more of you all than me about the house burning. Exactly. I think about me, what he said was that I worked with Pilleyan when Pille 600. Someone must have read Wiki, and someone must have. Now it's all coming to me. Someone must have read Wiki and said this Rasamanickam has been a close associate of Pilleyan. So the funny part was the incident that he mentioned happened 3 months before I was born. So it happened on the 16th of June 1990, where 600 police officers were killed. And I was born 3 months later. So I said that in Parliament. I mean, all that is all, I don't take too much notice of all that. There are more serious issues, like this. But on this matter, he said, no monks. But yesterday we saw Ampiti Suman. I mean, I don't know if you have your tweet X now, not tweet anymore. No? So if your X is there, I can show you on my X what I have retweeted. This is what happened yesterday. I don't know if the camera can capture that. So this is the same monk walking towards the... This is the same monk. So president said no monks. And here's the same monk who called him all sorts of names in Batiklo. He's going with this huge statue to the deep forest to make sure that the illegal encroachers have the blessings of Lord Buddha. That's what his post says.
That's how they mark the territory. They go and put a statue there.
So, and this is this is the pasture and see how green. So it's like a grounds, like where it's like a stadium. So all you have to do is just bring a tractor in, start and
plowing, and then you cultivate.
So this particular instruction that he was given was not carried out, which is why I asked a question in Parliament today. if a simple matter of this is a very simple matter as opposed to something like Easter Sunday attacks. If a simple instruction that the president of this country has given the senior DIG of the area is not being implemented, then one of the reasons why I was told was that because there's no IGP, problem, there is nobody's listening to anybody kind of thing. So that if that's the case, let's say now president's out of the country, public security ministers out of the country.
Who's in charge?
Constitutional Council is saying IGP's appointment is wrong.
Yeah.
President's side is saying no, president can appoint and nobody has the power to remove president's appointment. If something like Easter Sunday happens, IGP will say, I was not aware. Nilantha or whoever was a former acting IG will say, I was not appointed.
Yeah.
So who is
So
responsible?
they derelict.
Mhm.
Derelict in their duty.
Yeah. So,
Right.
so what I'm saying is that with this issue also, president has given instructions to say police must take action to remove this. He said to go and obtain a court order saying that this is illegal and then start removing it. But it's the opposite that's happening. Since the president's meeting happened, if there were 100 tractors, now I'm just giving you numbers to highlight the change. If there were 100, now there's 1,000. Now don't misquote me saying I said there were 1,000 tractors there. I was just telling you it's more.
Yeah.
And the monk who was just in Batticula is now gone there. And now Anuradha Yahampat, former governor, is seen here going with the monk. And there are two MSD officials. One MSD official is using. So I asked my security officer also if saving for me also. Can you also do it? He said that's illegal. They can't do it. And on what capacity is she being given ministerial security division personnel for violating the law?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You wanted to ask about the police. Gihan. Yeah. So quick question from Gihan.
Sure.
And then to a complex question next.
So I don't know if it can be a quick question or a quick answer because I think it delves deep into the whole DNA of this country at this moment. But now since this came up, now the president has given instructions to do a certain task and said the police should do this. But clearly the president's instructions are not being adhered to or so pretending that I don't know who is running this country. If the current president is giving such instructions and the administration, military, police, everybody is doing just the opposite. Now, assuming this may be a bit of a fanciful stretch, assuming that the government will change at some point, maybe next year or the year after, and assuming that you have some part to play in it, or the new government, how will this be cleaned up? Because this seems to be like it has taken such deep root, very systemic. And I mean, we can see even during the Yahapalana regime, the administration wasn't completely on board with Yahapalana. That's what, and let's not go into detail as to and name names and whatever. But how will this administration that is rotten to the core, the civil service, military, police, and all that, be cleaned up? How, and anybody, whoever takes on the government next, how would you even start?
I came up with the whole argument about the MPs. MPs are elected by the public, right? So this entire system change thing cannot just happen from parliament, cannot just happen from ministers, cannot just happen from the administration also. In general, it's just how our people have lived all these years. I'm not saying everybody, but I think deep down within programs like this, that's why I said at the beginning itself that we need to take these to the grassroots level because the public have to change also. So for an example, I'll tell you why I say this. It's because in 2022, when Gota was, all messing up and, people were dead against some of these MPs. They couldn't even go to their electorates. They were hooted away. Now they are back again as ministers. They are able to hold their rallies. They are able to have issues because of the political. They are able to give out Now, yeah, exactly. So there was some rice that came from Myanmar. I think the government of Myanmar had donated rice. Some of these fellows who wanted system change in this in Batiklo in my electorate who protested, who were there. They said, "Sir, Ban, because of you now this Myanmar rice also we have missed." It's a serious issue because the people also have day to day problems that they need to address. So I think we need to educate our people from. It's not just one. This is how I'm going to do it. Answer. We will, if you have time, we'll have another discussion and purely focus on this topic.
Yeah.
Because we have to look at a lot of larger issues. And in this country there's no respect for human rights. As soon as you say human rights, you go to deep down into some village and say human rights. May human rights can it's all these diaspora fellows trying to. So NGO Karya, Diaspora Fellows, which probably includes all you as well, because they're probably
we get it.
called.
Get that.
So all of us together, this LTT ramp that is existent. So what we say is when we go to Geneva and we speak about some issue. I've never been to Geneva, but people who go to Geneva who speak about these issues or in forums. I was very recent in a forum where it's for freedom of religion or belief. It was a forum where how you mentioned about the ICCPR Act, about how the ICCPR Act is being misused in different countries. We spoke about all those things, and it's basically a knowledge gaining exercise. So even when we speak about these issues, and if I come in Parliament and say freedom of religion or belief is important, and we have signed these conventions, why haven't we done that? They'll automatically think it's some attack against Sinhala Buddhism, right? So I'm saying just look at the issue with the mothers of missing people in this country, right? Some mother, for her mother, end of the day, her son is, no matter if the son was a LTT cadre or a military soldier, if he's a war criminal or not a war criminal, if he's a thief or a drug addict, the mother would eventually, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of mothers in this room, they would really want to know what happened to their son. But we as public, there are some people who are opposed to that, saying that's done. We must go beyond it. There is no need. We'll give a death certificate. Let's finish it off.
Yeah.
So this is I'm saying if our mentalities in some of our mentalities are there when we are more than happy to advocate for denying justice to a mother, then our system itself,
Right.
we can't just blame the system itself. It's just the
It's not a system worth keeping.
well, I'm saying we can't just blame the system. It's a mindset, and since 1948, or even before that, pre-independent British, during the British time also, divide people were
Divide and
divided. And
Divide and
so
rule. Yeah.
as soon as British left, Sinhala people thought, okay, some Sinhala people thought, okay, the Tamil people enjoyed all the perks because they set up all the schools in the north and the east in the coastal areas. They got to the government service. We must now do drastic things to balance it out. All those were instilled in people. So unless at that time, if we had, like just I always, think about it. 70 years or 56, 70, almost 70 years later, after in Tamils of Indian origin were denied citizenship or their citizenship was removed, even to date, they are the largest contributors to this country's forex income. So if I was DSN Nayak at the time, I would have thought, how do I bring more people to, increase this industry?
Right.
At the time, but I don't know what he thought at the time and what led him to think the way he thought. But so it's not just because the government changes, just because there are people who are able to manage the economy better, just because people have better administrators or the government staff are more efficient. If our mindsets don't change, and change won't happen, we have to advocate for it.
Right.
So which is why I'm saying broader discussions need to happen, because we can't rely on the media.
Yeah,
media is spitting, Dr. Shafi gave Bandapeti, something like that will come up again. It's a very popular, I'll tell you, I know I'm talking, I'm not letting the others talk, but I'm not letting
You're
you all
guest.
ask
You're welcome
questions.
to.
But stop me if you have
go ahead,
but
please.
just a thing, when during 2020 COVID pandemic, we got our friends and all that to distribute rice, right? Because lockdown was so bad. So at one point in Batiklo, there was a shortage of rice because there was no rice to buy. So or it was expensive because they had everyone wanted packed 5 kg bags. The prices were going up. So we distributed about 5,000 packs or more than that to 5,000 families. So on Facebook and social media, 10 people will write saying, good job, sir, well done. We need people like you to, whatever. So there was a shortage of rice. So we got a pass from the police officers to go to Polonnaru because it's a adjoining district to bring some rice from there because their larger factories are there. So on the way there, we got a pass. I also went there. So the lorry or the transport vehicle was also given a pass, and I came back, and the vehicle was coming, and some police officer had stopped it and said, you can't go. Where's your pass? Your pass is only valid within your district. Some technical issue. So then I had to call my OIC and I said, look, you guys gave us. This was during election times. Somehow through the police, the news had leaked saying that some lorry that was carrying some goods for me had been stopped at the border. Within a few hours, there was a news article saying that I was smuggling alcohol because alcohol was also not available at the time.
Yeah.
That I was a lorry belonging to was a lorry that was bringing things for me had smuggled alcohol inside 5 kg rice bag.
Right.
1,000 people had shared it overnight.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, it's just that's how it is. So a good message. Sometimes when I'm in Parliament, if I say something very useful, something that people need to listen to, 100 people will say, look at it. But if I call Ali Sabri some bootlicker or something like that, 1,000
Which you will never do.
I called him that a few times. so I'm saying it's just mindset of people also.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's.
I'll keep the next answer short.
Yeah, it's a society-wide approach to change. I think that's what we need. Okay, so the next question, if you can move on.
Sure.
So we had the Indo-Lanka Accords brought us the 13th Amendment, which became a conversation again recently. I think there was a multi-party conference, I think convened by the president also, where this was discussed. How important is the 13th Amendment to resolving this national question? I think part of, and also things like what are the sticking points? Things like police powers and all of that. Would that also then go to solving the previous things we talked about the cattle issue and things like that? If more power devolution was done, where you don't have to go to the president to solve every little problem in your district. So how important is the implementation of the 13th Amendment, especially for the North and East?
So all these questions that you ask me are not like I just said that I'll give you short answers.
I know, and that's what I said.
Me a question.
I know.
This is if I give a short answer to this,
but no, take your time with this one because I think this is an important one.
Yes. I would like to say again on this also we'll do a one day not very time soon. Let's give our audience enough time to recover from seeing my face for a little while. We'll give them enough time to recover, and another time we'll speak one entire session just on devolution because it's a larger subject. It's a subject, it's a issue that has brought a civil war that led to 40 years. So that can't be answered in 5 minutes, but I will still give you a very brief answer for that. 13th Amendment to the Constitution is one thing, right? But the entire question about power sharing, political power being shared amongst everybody is something that needs to be addressed, right? So if 13th Amendment to the Constitution is the answer or not is debatable. The 13th Amendment of the Constitution was brought in, and the provincial councils came about through that, and that is the only form of power sharing arrangement that the country, actually the Constitution has right now. So if somebody says we must get rid of the 13th Amendment, then we will go back to no power sharing at all. So power sharing means is that people of those areas, now let's say if you live in what Pradesh, I don't know what this Colombo Municipality Council. So Colombo Municipality Council must be able to decide what's best for Colombo Municipality Council, right? Or Mathura Municipality Council must be able to decide what's best for Mathura. Let's say I am an elected MP from Colombo. Batiklo. If I was appointed a minister in charge that comes and the Colombo Municipality Council, I'm just giving examples, comes under that. I mean, if I am from Batiklo, I have no knowledge about Colombo, and the decisions that I take for Colombo are central because I am from Batiklo. I take decisions based on what's best for Batiklo. That may not work for Colombo. I'm just giving you practical examples. So, which is why political power must be shared. So, when you give power to people, let's leave the North and the East side because 13th Amendment, power devolution, we are talking about asymmetrical political power devolution. It's not just special powers given to the North and the East. The Southern Provincial Council will also have the similar power. So, I'll give you an example. Now let's take the Southern Provincial Council's tourism sector right now. I think is overpopulated. There are too many small boutiques. There are too many hotels. The entire stretches so much
Oversupply.
tourists, and it's I think to a point where it's getting destroyed now. The natural Hiriketi or whatever beaches that people used to go to are now so overpopulated. It's not exotic anymore. Let's put it that way. But if you look at the northwestern province where Chilaw, Puttalam, and all these districts come, hardly any tourists there, right? Let's say if we took a tourism minister today, let's say these are all examples that I'm coming up with to make it easier for people to comprehend what I'm saying. If the tourism minister comes up with a blanket policy that taxes must be increased for tourist attractions across the country, the northwestern province people already don't have tourists, but the southern province does have tourism. But if we have power devolved, let's say tourism is a devolved subject, the southern province can say, okay, no more new hotels. If you want to set up a new hotel, you have to pay a premium price, or the existing ones have to pay 40% tax because they're making money. Whereas northwestern province can be, the provincial council can decide to give them a tax holiday. They say, okay, northwestern province, any new hotels that come up don't have to pay tax for 10 years. So if the provincial council can come up with such mechanisms, we can change how things are done. So it is the people of those provinces who need to be able to decide this. So these are laws that need to be brought in. So which is why we as a party, my party is our main principle that our party was founded on is power sharing, right? So which is why to your answer I couldn't give a direct question, because one day you said one day if I'm in change, things change. Our party's position is power devolution. So we are not a party that is trying to come back and take over national government or the central government. It's more so devolve power to from the center to the provinces. So devolution is important in two or three aspects. This is one is in terms of practical development, administration. Imagine somebody teacher from Badulla having to come to Colombo to get a transfer done. You give it to the province, they can get it done in Badulla itself. So it makes administration better. But at the same time, it also gives a sense of ownership to the people who live in that province. This particularly addresses the Tamil people's issues. So where in this parliament, all Tamil speaking MPs put together would be about 30 MPs. Tomorrow, if they bring a law and say all Tamil speaking people must, from tomorrow, just like in 1956, Sinhala Only Act was brought in. Even though you have so many MPs in parliament, a bill can be passed with just majority because the majority community has more members in parliament, right? So if we want to bring in a bill that is, that now let's take for Australia for an example. I think recently Australia was there are some similar issues. Majority of the people got together and said that no, the indigenous people must not be given their rights. But how? Because the indigenous people are lesser in number, so they can never influence such a decision. So similarly, even in Sri Lanka, if any decision that is being made that is adverse to the Tamil people, that cannot be changed. I can be a Tamil MP, which is why in 1983 the Tamil MPs actually resigned from parliament and said there's no point in being in parliament. You bring a bill, you have the numbers, you will get it passed. Like this online safety bill, like I said earlier, that is something that affects the entire country.
Yeah.
The citizenship sector, there's majority of the people got together, decided. So at least in day-to-day affairs of matters that relate to that area, not in matters of defense, border security, customs, or international relations, I don't think the provinces should have.
But police powers has been one of those sticking points, right?
Now, for an example, I mean, police powers, even police powers are given to the provincial council. It comes under the IGP. There is no separate uniform. There is no new.
Yeah.
They are not able to buy weapons. They are not able to recruit. The IGP of the country is still in charge of the police in the eastern province. It's just that the police, the chief minister of the province, will have some say with the IGP, the DIG of the area.
Correct me if I'm wrong. In I think was it 88, the first chief minister of the then unified Perumal, right?
Varadaraja Perumal.
Perumal. Didn't he declare his own police force? And I think that was what he ended up abolishing. And I think he wanted to bring in an act that would create an independent Tamil home. I mean, that was the mistrust that I think people are still carrying.
So basically, I think the police force matter was at the time. I think the law was passed, and I was told recently that somebody was born around that time and read papers would know that there were advertisements put on the newspaper also saying that they were recruiting people for the Sri Lankan IGP was recruiting police officers for the new police force that is being set up at the time under the IGP, not a different police, no different uniform, nothing. But then that was put on hold due to some issue at the time. So people like Varadaraj Perumal at the time, I don't think when that election happened, the Tamil people also didn't accept the 13th Amendment to the Constitution at the time because they said that because the North and East must be one. There were many reasons why they didn't accept it.
Right.
So Varadaraj Perumal was, I don't think he was the people's choice at the time. He was because nobody else wanted to contest. It was the EPRLF who took up and they contested. So whatever actions and decisions that they took don't really resonate the sentiments of the Tamil people either.
In fact, I think he had to leave the country.
And now in 2020, he supported Gota for the presidential election. He was on Gota's stage, in fact.
Okay.
Him, Karuna, all of them were on Gota's stage supporting him at the presidential election. So, you can see, him wanting something, declaring independence now on Gota's stage, and Gota is happy to carry him on his stage.
So say there's a full implementation of the 13th Amendment.
Let's not get too bogged down with that. I'm just saying, first ask the president of provincial elections.
Right.
Let's talk about that.
First, you need that.
I mean, this is the problem. President has just put this thing out, and everybody's fighting north, east, west, south. Monks are protesting. My position is let's for full implementation, no implementation, implementing police powers, land powers. First, there must be a provincial council that is functioning.
Yeah.
So if the president is now not going to have elections till whenever he wants, and one of the things is I actually have a lot of respect for president in terms of his ability to be so creative in doing things. One such thing, I mean, in creating things doing things where we also are in a bit of a problem to oppose it. Now, provincial council, he has said that women, the percentage of women who contest in provincial council must be given a quota, minimum of this percentage. That is why I'm amending it.
Yeah.
Now, if I go and say, no, you don't need an amendment, have the election, all friends here, most of them will say, look, this Shanakiyan is against women coming to politics.
So he can take one popular position. So that kind of traps you into a box.
Precisely. So if we go and say, no, you hold the elections, so what we are saying is you hold elections and then we'll amend all that. But, so I give it to him for his... yes. Yes.
Democracy is not the rule of the majority, but the minority. Democracy is not the rule law of the majority, but not the minority. The quote from Albert Camus. I don't know if I'm spelling that right. Whatever. But the thing is, I just want to know, can we have, now Gota came to power saying one law, one country. This constitution is the supreme law of the country. Can we have a discussion about whether or not to implement an amendment to a constitution and call for, a rule of law? I mean, how can we call for a rule of law without implementing the 13th Amendment and having discussion about whether or not, how does that work? Can we, is the law?
I don't understand your question.
The question is can a person request for rule of law in a country and at the same time go and say, no, don't implement the 13th Amendment?
Saying is that without elections, there is no way this can happen, right? Local council powers are there. With no local council functioning, there is no... So, and for 13th Amendment to be removed or police and land powers and all that are already in the Constitution. It's just that they haven't been, the president or the ministers haven't really used them. So, but there have been certain powers have been taken back from it as well.
Right.
So Samurdhi at the time was under the provincial council. So large amount of powers have been taken back, which president promised that he will give back. But never. So that is what he's been talking about. So we are saying, please, president, you do what you're doing. You don't need the consensus of the TNA to it's not like this online safety bill. Just because we say no, it's not that he's going to stop it. No.
Yeah.
So basically, we will stand by our position on what our solution is. If this is what you're going to do, please go ahead and do it. We are not stopping you. But the intention is not to hold elections. The intention was to basically tell the international community that, I am different. I'm not like Gota. UN Human Rights Council, the transitional justice has 4 pillars. The fourth one is guarantee of non-recurrence. So for the guarantee of non-recurrence, the suggested thing is to have a new constitution. So he's saying, okay, I am willing to do it. That's why he came and said, I only have two MPs in parliament, 3 MPs in parliament. Parliament has to decide. So almost trying to be too smart.
Right. I think one of the points that was made in Parliament today was that now they want to appoint a committee to look at the electoral system in its entirety. So it could be just another, like nobody's going to say no to that. But it's also a great way to delay. I mean, in the sense, great way to delay another election.
Yeah. So I think all the parties have said that they're not opposition. The parties in the opposition have said that they're not going to be
right. In fact, opposition leader said, "Have an election first, then we'll talk about it afterwards." That's what he said.
Talking. I mean, Ranil is very creative at giving subjects to talk about. Giving subjects that you cannot distractions. He's very creative at that. But yeah. But I think we must focus on the fact that we need an election.
Your time. Thank you very much.
No problem.
I have a couple more slides which I don't think we're going to get to. We'll get to.
I want to see the cartoon that you.
The cartoon was this. This was the cartoon.
Yeah.
So about nationalism and all of that. Nationalist forces seem to be regathering for whatever reason. But also about the issue of the Constitutional Council. The rejection outright of international assistance in conducting certain things, whether actually transitional justice is possible with a purely local mechanism. I mean, these are questions maybe we can take.
The community has rejected the TRC that is proposed.
Yeah.
So if the victims don't accept it, any mechanism that is not accepted by the victims is a failure.
Is a failure.
So they have said that there is no trust in the local mechanism. Yeah. Only because now even on Easter Sunday attack, if people don't have trust in the local mechanism, how can there be trust in the local mechanism when it only comes to the war?
Right.
So
exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah.
Quick question. CC, Constitutional Council, is now upset about the IGP appointment. Why aren't they? Because as I remember, when there were conflicts between the independent bodies, which one would not do what others say. So, for example, the election, when the state was ordered to disperse the money and the money was not dispersed. Why did the Constitutional Council, come out with all guns blazing then and ask them, why convene them and say, no, you have to release the funds and, do that. What their body should do, they didn't do. And why are they now coming about the IGP? Do you have an opinion about that?
My opinion is that people like you must come to Parliament to ask these questions. So okay. We'll wrap it up with that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Like I said, you've been very generous with your time, and I think we definitely need to get you back. Maybe with Mr. Sumandir also. I think our group would love to maybe meet him as well.
I think I'd most definitely like to be back, but we'll try and take one issue
and discuss and have a more
deep into it.
Right.
Because I think the subjects that we discussed are very broad.
Yeah.
And I'm very conscious about not being misinterpreting my message. And even though if I take time, that is because I'm being very careful not to, so sometimes I may speak at a space and say things because I know the background story and I would expect the others also to understand what I'm saying. Then I make the mistake of leaving out crucial
bits of information,
little facts that actually change the entire narrative. So I was being very cautious. So I think if Mr. Sumant and I both come, we'll have to do it in a few hours. So I would suggest that you do it with him on one weekend and we do another one after a few weeks. Because yeah, of course. I mean, things like devolution, it's constitutional matters. He's one of the best constitutional lawyers in the country. So, I mean, when we have an expert, why should I,
weigh in on that?
Because the thing is, I mean, it's good to have interest in a lot of things, but it's important that you pick a few certain issues and you champion those causes as opposed to trying to know everything also. So it's, some issues I'm more than happy to say I'm not aware than, trying to bluff my way around.
In fact, we didn't even get to Chris's scope question. So I think we'll leave that for the next one.
Yeah.
So let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully we'll get you back soon. Thank you to the rest of the group as well. Anu CK, as always, thank you for helping us put this together. In fact, they were the ones who were doing the Aragale media, and now they're helping us continue the fight.
Hopefully they can help us with because our social media also, there's nobody to help us.
I must say there is a plan. We'll talk about it. Sure. There is a plan.
I have one quote I would like to
make. Sorry, we didn't get to your quote. Can we quickly do that?
Hold on, let me give you the...
Okay. So
we end with a quote, Shanakiyan.
We end with a quote that I look for. So the first one is, to oppose corruption in government is the highest obligation of patriotism.
Absolutely.
And the second one is, true freedom requires the rule of law and justice and a judicial system in which the rights of some are not secured by the denial of rights to others.
Absolutely apt. And very, very apt in terms of not just the situation here, but things we see globally as well.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a wrap for day 228 at GGY. We'll be back at our street con on Sunday. So if anybody's in the area, please do join. And we'll be back here hopefully with another interesting guest. We're hoping to have Dr. Harini here maybe next week, not to put her on the spot, but hopefully we'll have her here.
And she's very tired with doing for a lot of talk shows because I think she was on Serious Face.
I
saw her, I said, how do you do this?
Yeah. So thank you so much. And that's a wrap from us today. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks.